Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Coffee and Conversation right here on Yachting International Radio. My name is Ria, and I am your host, and I'd like to welcome Mairi. Is it Mairi? Mairi, sorry, from Mega Yacht Services, all the way in Sint Maarten. How are you?
Doing well, doing well. How are you?
Good, thanks. It looks absolutely stunning there today. A little bit jealous, I must admit.
A little overcast, but t-shirt weather. It's paradise.
Yes.
It's paradise every day.
That's a bit why we're jealous here, for sure, because you're in a t-shirt. But the location is definitely stunning. Right, tell me a little bit about yourself. I mean, you've been in yachting in your past, correct, before you became a businesswoman on shore?
Briefly, I was actually more of a businesswoman. I unintentionally got into yachting, selling caviar, and got recruited to do a charter, did some crossings, worked on some boats, just done some day work here and there, kind of a thing. But businesswoman before yachting, for sure. Have had some other businesses in Colorado before I came down here 2 years ago permanently for the seasons. And over the last 2 years, worked a little bit with Mega Yacht Services. John McDonald was the previous owner, and before that it was Janie Harrison. So I know Janie Harrison is a pretty popular name in the industry as far as identifying Mega Yacht Services in Sint Maarten. But I worked with John, just helping out, just being a runner basically, and doing deliveries for provisions and wine, and became good friends with him actually. And he proposed selling it to my husband and I, and it was a really good way to get my husband Tim down here full time, because for the last 2 seasons it's been myself here full time, and he's been in Colorado kind of holding down the fort there. We had our dogs there, but now we're here and we have the dogs here and just taking it on strong. So
Well, and I mean, you are an animal lover, obviously, because just by the way you say it, where your dogs are is where home is.
exactly. Yeah, very very much animal lovers. I grew up in Minnesota and Wisconsin, mostly like on a hobby farm, and my husband grew up in Maine. Same thing. So we've had animals in our lives forever, and with the devastation in Australia, it just really tugged at our heartstrings, and we're like, let's do something to do our part and help, and also I feel that if we can do it within our industry and the community here, then it just helps get more people on board and helping out and feeling like they can contribute in a way. So with our 10% that we'll give to the World Wildlife Fund, that's a way for other people to help as well. Just we'll service them and we'll give part of their proceeds to the World Wildlife Fund.
Well, and that's the whole reason we're here today, is because, we have been talking, we talked off camera a little bit about what was going on in Australia. And you do have, I mean, the yachting community is large in Australia. A lot of the yachties that come over, not only to the Mediterranean, but as well to Fort Lauderdale in the Caribbean, they are from Australia originally. And I'm sure that you have friends that are affected at this moment. Their families are affected, their livestock, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we have a friend, Max. His uncle lost their house to the fire, and we have some other friends, and I don't know if their homes have been compromised yet, but just as a whole, I mean, when you're in such a crisis like that, it's just devastating for a country and for the people in the country and their families afar. So it's pretty serious what's going on over there.
Well, they've lost quite a significant amount of animals so far. I mean, the entire populations have almost been wiped out.
Yeah. I think it was 95% of the koalas were lost to the fires, and I mean, just that in itself is like, wow.
So do you know exactly what it is that the World Wildlife Fund is doing to help the animals in Australia?
They are providing just like medical help for the animals and the resources that they need to help save them, heal them, rehabilitate them. Um, so essentially, in a nutshell, that's what they're doing.
So Mega Yacht Services for the next 29 days, I guess, because you did start this yesterday.
We can call it 30. We'll do an extra day, no problem.
So for the next month, you guys are going to be donating 10% of your profits for everything that you do towards the World Wildlife Foundation in order to help the animals over there. Now, prior to this, you're quite well known for contributing to the animal population right there in St. Maarten.
Yes, it's the St. Maarten Veterinary Clinic, and they do a lot of foster, and they pick up a lot of the strays and get them fixed and then put them back out or try to find homes for them. It's just an endless effort, it's constantly needed here with all the strays, especially. So we try to volunteer with them and then get some of the boats involved. Like we'll do weekend events and we'll have some of the puppies come and people can play with the puppies and just volunteer their time to work with the animals, and it gives back to the efforts that are being made to help these strays and the fosters that are needed. There's always a short.
Well, do you know what? I mean, there's something that is done in Majorca, and I think as well in Antibes. The yachting community does come together to help strays and animal shelters and that sort of thing. And, in the future, if you would like to send us right here at Yachting International Radio, the information of when you're going to have events and when you're going to be raising money, we would be more than happy to air that information and get it out there to help you raise, funds and awareness for that area.
That would be awesome. Would love it.
Well, I mean, it's a big thing, and especially with an island population, I find that the strays, because there's nowhere for them to go, and I'm not really entirely sure, but I know that from my time in Majorca, there seems to be a lack of education when it comes to fixing your animals.
Right.
And so maybe it's an island mentality or something, but what happens is these, you literally, in Majorca anyways, there's huge populations of cats.
Yeah.
And they just overpopulate, as you can imagine. And I know that there are organizations in Majorca that go out and they get these stray cats and they bring them back and they fix them and then put them back out on the street so that they're not procreating and creating, more and more and more. But there is a need to do that for dogs as well. And you see, I think sometimes people get fairly militant about certain things, especially when it comes to animals. But I think if we take a less militant approach and perhaps suggest people don't give puppies for Christmas and suggest people go to the local animal shelter because, pure breeds aren't necessarily a pure breed. Those have been, I've seen articles on the internet where these animals have been taken from something that they were, 50, 60 years ago and bred into something that is a freak almost and with all sorts of health problems because they've been interbred. Yeah. But there's some absolutely amazing animals in the local shelters.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we call them coconut retrievers here. So they're all very sweet, got those island vibes, mellow dogs. Yeah. But another thing that they're doing here is they don't actually have a legitimate shelter. And so they're making some efforts. This one clinic in particular, they're making efforts to establish an actual shelter because you go to the clinic and it's very small and there's a back room and they have little kennels stacked up there for the dogs and cats. And then there's an upstairs. And so a few times a day, the dogs get walked and of course they get fed. But it's, shelters don't really have an appealing nature to them in general, but it would be a lot nicer. for
Yeah.
what's going on here. And the nice thing about the clinics here as well is that they all work together. So I think if we can keep focusing on, okay, let's find the right location, which they're honing in on one now. But then it's going to be the building and the funds to do that, and
it always comes down to funding, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So,
for everything.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I'm really excited about this 10% of the profit that is going to Australia for the next 30 days. And obviously, Mega Yacht Services is very, very involved in animal welfare the world over. And we commend you for that and thank you for that, because, the most vulnerable of society is our animals. And we do need to have a strong voice for them. Somebody has to have a voice for them. And we're glad it's you and Sint Maarten.
Awesome.
Well, we're going to provide all the information when we air this interview. And as well, as I said, after this next 30 days is over, whatever events that you have coming up or fundraising that you have for the animals in that area, please, we would love to share them. We'd love to talk to you again and talk about, what we can do to help and what the Yachts in general can do to help the animals in your area. I ask everybody to head over to Mega Yacht Services, the website. You're on a social media as well?
We are, yep. At Mega Yacht Services for Instagram and Facebook, and then megayachtservice.com is the website.
Brilliant. Well, we will provide at least the website, and I'm sure that once they get to the website, they can find your social media.
They can. Absolutely.
Excellent. Well, thank you for being so kind, and thank you for taking your time today. I know it's your busy season at the moment, so I will let you get back to it. Enjoy the beautiful weather behind you that I'm extremely envious of.
Come down anytime.
I'd be careful. I might just take you up on that.
Let's do it.
Thanks for joining us. This has been another edition of Coffee and Conversation right here on Yachting International Radio. My name is Ria. We'll see you next time.